when I get inspired by something, that comes from something that's a story, that a memory or something I saw. I told like the story of the butterfly. I was in the countryside and I was going for a run early morning, and there was this butterfly sitting on the flowers, and he was there probably since a few hours, and he was full of morning dew drop. And that's how the idea came from. So there's always a story behind each piece of jewelry. So I don't decide it, it just comes like that. I think I'm just aware sometimes of some details, and I'm just curious about what's surrounded me.
So when you started, your first piece was a geranium.
Geranium leaves earrings,
Geranium leaf, which you sold at Christie's.
Yeah.
And Christie's then called you the jeweler for tomorrow.
Oh, wow. I don't remember that yet, that's true.
Which is kind of cool. And so why geraniums?
So at that time, I was going back and forth in the Alps, and we have a lot of geraniums flowers at my parents' place on the Annecy Lake. Mm-hmm. And so I always thought that the geranium leaves were very inspiring because of the shades, because of the colors. And it just came like that. I was like, okay, let's start. It just really came naturally. There's no really explanation for which, but that's how it started.
Because you're focused in, I mean, if everyone has a look tonight at the jewellery, it's very nature-inspired. There's charming snails crawling up, going towards a chili pepper. They're going to have a horrible shock. And little frogs dancing around, and ants, and all kinds of little parts of nature. And but this is a well-trodden path. Mm-hmm. Sitting in the offices at Vogue for so many years. I mean, if I had a penny for every time a jewellery designer came into me and said, I'm inspired by nature, I'd be rich.
Sure.
So now how are you doing it differently? What are you doing with this sort of natural inspiration to make it contemporary?
So nature is my first inspiration, I would say. I'm not doing only nature-inspired pieces, but that's true, it's my number one inspiration. But there's few things. First, in every piece I create, I really love to work on the light aspect, because jewelry, I think it's all about the light, the sparkle of the gems, the use of the metal. And I always love really to create a dialogue between the metal part and the gemstones. It has to work together. That's why you will never see from me like just a big stone sitting on white gold and that's it. I love to create a story really between the gems and the material I use. For example, I love also to experiment. I love to work with aluminum, with titanium. I love to work on patinas. So I am always looking for the contrast of colors, but also texture, because I believe that jewelry is something that you touch. Actually, it's on your body. So I think the texture is something very interesting. And also it's very central as approach of jewelry.
So you do that with the different materials, the contrast, the textures.
Exactly. For example, you were talking about my first pair of earrings at Christie's, so geranium leaves earrings. They were made of aluminum, gold, and diamonds. And I colored the aluminum in green, but it was like a very deep and matte green to contrast with the sparkle of the tiny diamonds all around. So I think it gives volume and life to a piece, to work on texture, and it gives depth, I think.
Did you see a lot of jewellery growing up that inspired you or not? I mean, do you look at it a lot?
You mean the jewellery brands?
Yes. No, well, did your mother wear jewellery? Did you see it? Did you have something in your head when you set off that you thought, this is why I want to do it?
Tell her herself as she is here, but my mother loved jewellery and she loves gemstones as well. And of course, I think she's part of that because she used to show me her jewelry. My grandmother used to show me her jewelry as well. So definitely, yes.
So there was a tradition.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think jewelry is something, I mean, you can find jewelry in each family because it's part of also the mother give it to her daughter and then it stays in the family most of the time. So there is a real story, a real background about jewelry, I think.
Did you think, God, it can't be a geranium like this because I've seen geraniums like that. It's got to be something newer and more contemporary.
That is true. And I think the worst for me is to get bored. I always love to experiment new materials, new shapes. So I was not comparing myself to the other, like saying, oh, I want to be different than this one. But I just absolutely wanted to experiment, to work on the patinas. It was just more curiosity about it. And it's always the case. Actually, there's a butterfly in this exhibition, and butterfly was a real challenge for me because I love the animal. I love butterflies. But for this one, I was like, oh gosh, so many jewelry brands create butterflies, and mine will automatically look like someone else.
One of Emmanuel's first large collection was orchids. You did about 7 pieces.
Large collection.
A large collection of orchids, 7 pieces, which were really, really beautiful. And actually, I think for people who know a lot about jewellery and see a lot of jewellery, the minute they looked at it, they would think of G. Paulding Farnham's orchid collection for Tiffany and Company, which was created in the very late 19th century. It really was one of the sort of great jewellery collections in jewellery history, because these orchids were extraordinarily botanically correct and are still very sought after. I saw ones coming up at Christie's actually in December, which is going to be interesting. Lots of people will be after that. But at the time when they were made, this collection, orchids were very rare. They were very exotic, and they were making them for sort of some of the big industrial magnates in America who were building vast hothouses in their estates in Long Island to house these orchids. So, but now orchids are very commonplace plant, really. You can see them in supermarkets,
everywhere.
Phalaenopsis, everywhere. So what attracted you to orchids?
I think something very interesting about orchids, for just one name, orchids, you have so many variety of orchids, so many different shapes, different colors. So I was fascinated by that. You have really exotic orchids. We have orchids we see every day, everywhere in the supermarket, as you said. So I was fascinated by that. And also orchids always representing the symbolic, the femininity, and also sensuality, even like sexuality as well. And I was just fascinated by this vision of a flower, because I think it's a very strong flower. And so I did this collection because I just wanted to show a panel of different orchids. So that there was like black orchids, white orchids, a tiger orchids. I really wanted to work with different materials, different patterns, just like that.
And each one has a diamond suspended within its petals.
Yeah, exactly. So each orchid was different, but all of them had just one stone in the middle as a center stone, all diamonds. Because again, so each orchid were made in gold and with Japanese lacquer. And it was really a matte effect on the metal. But I really wanted to contrast between the sparkle of the diamonds with the matte of the metal.
It's very effective with the black.
Yeah, exactly.
Very effective.
And it was funny because this event was at Levi Gorvey Diane Gallery on Madison in New York. And it was, so the exhibition, you had the 7 orchids in the middle of the room, in the middle of all the Pierre Soulages paintings. And so Pierre Soulages is a very famous painter, and he works about the outre noir, so the different shade of the black, and we're really working on the texture. And that was perfect dialogue between the paintings and the orchids.
And did you study these orchids?
I was always curious to see how they grow, how they come from which countries. So it's always interesting, of course.
Because I think when Paulding Farnham was doing his, he was in the Tiffany school, and they would bring in botanical specimens, and it would be drawn from that. And you have a garden, don't you, in Paris?
So yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a big terrace, and I'm building a garden on the rooftop with beehives and all that. But I love beehives. Yeah.
Are you going to make honey?
Yeah, maybe. maybe if you buy a piece from me, you will have also some honey with it. So that's perfect. But no, I love gardening for sure. I put flowers everywhere. I put plants everywhere.
And then can you sketch them from real life?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I love to do like sketches, gouache everywhere, and I love to go back and forth to the Alps or to the nature. I think I feel really myself in the nature, doing hikes or deep in the sea when I dive. Yeah, just nature connected.
What's the next part of the process for you to realize the jewel?
So I always have a notebook and some pencil with me to do sketches a bit everywhere. Actually, the geranium earrings that I created, I remember I did that in a restaurant in Paris on just like that. So I always have...
It just suddenly came and you had to sketch
exactly.
it down.
I don't know why, actually. I thought about geranium at that moment. There was no geranium around, but why not? And so I start with really quick sketches, and then I love to work on the gouache. I still love to do it. I never learned gouache. I've not been to the big gouache.
You didn't do it at Van Cleef?
No, because actually when you are at the workshops, you really work at the bench on the metal thing, on the skeleton of the piece, but you don't work on the gouache. That's the studio, the creative studio who created gouache. But I just learn like by myself like this. So I do the gouache, and then, as I said, I love the sculptural approach. So I work with wax, with paper. I need to have a vision in 3D very quickly. Because that's how I work. I need to imagine in 3D what I want to have as shapes. And then I will do a first maquette. I will start talking with the workshop, with all the jewelers, and explain my ideas. At the same time, I will know I will definitely know which gemstones I will use, which color I want, which contrast I want to create. Everything arrive a bit at the same time.
And you want to work with a workshop as opposed to making them yourself. You like that creative dialogue.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
That's also the good thing. I worked in a workshop because now I have a perfect dialogue with the jewelers at the workshop. So I exactly know what I want. And actually, every day I'm at the workshop just being behind them and just checking not giving orders, but like I'm just a talk.
That it comes in the way you imagined.
Exactly.
And this collection, you've included some objects for the first time, which is very exciting. And why was that? Was that marrying your sculpting part?
Also, and I think a piece of jewelry can be earrings, brooches, rings. They have to be beautiful when you wear them, but also it has to be beautiful just on your hand, just looking at it as an object. And I've always been very curious to create like just object for the house, like just trays, trinket balls, but adding some rubies and diamonds, like really precious object. I think it's quite chic.
It's very chic.
Because you can have diamonds in your house without wearing them, but showing them to everyone. Like, give me the salt, and you open the box with diamonds. And
could you, because you said you don't like jewelry to look too much like jewelry.
Exactly. I love when it's not that obvious as well. For example, we're talking about the Orchid collection in New York. All of them were made in gold, but I put Japanese lacquer on it, so it could have been aluminum, titanium, and everyone was very surprised that it was gold and that I was hiding the gold. Because I think high jewelry doesn't have to be obvious and, of course it's gold and diamonds. People have to be curious about.
And one of your lovely bowls here, your stone bowls, has sort of diamond lily pads.
Yeah.
Could somebody take those off and wear them, do you think?
Not this object. You can take them off.
Could do that.
It's really like objects. But I love the idea that the jewelry can become an object.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
Yes, it
to
can
remove
double
the flower
up.
and of course.
Double up.
And I love the jewelry to be able to move on the body or as objects, for sure.
So not only is Emmanuel a sculptor and a craftsman and a jeweller, he's a bit of a sort of action man, because in your pursuit of these stones, you go off and spend time in mines, don't you? Quite long times.
I love traveling. That's a big thing since always. I always travel a lot with my parents. That I think it opened my mind and my inspiration so much. And so once a year at least now, I try to go in another country to visit the mines to understand more about the mine to market, the miners exactly. So most of the time I spend like 2 weeks with a family of miners. To understand the way they live, the way they work, all the environment conditions, the human conditions. And actually it's quite wild but amazing experiences.
So where have you traveled to?
So I've been to Mexico for the fire opals. I've been to Colombia for the emeralds. Last summer I was in Brazil for the Paraíba tourmalines.
Yeah.
And it's quite actually fascinating because you have so many stories in each country because it's always different culture. And still people are really curious about yourself as well and very curious about themselves. And it's really like a dialogue. We just learn to know each other, and it brings so much incredible experiences, and sometimes quite funny and dangerous sometimes experiences.
Because all brands now are talking about sustainability as they should,
Yeah, sure.
and then the process of the world at the moment and climate change and global warming, and knowing that their jewellery is all sourced and made with the best ethical practices. But I don't know anyone else who goes and lives with the miners and actually kind of lives like a miner.
We're gonna ask
in
people
the
at Cartier
process.
to go there, but no, it's.
So how do you find the families?
So I have few friends, gemologists, who are really focused on the gemstones, and they have access to some mines. So we just go in a very simple way like that. It's planned, but it's just me with two gemologist friends, and we just discover like that. It's very, very simple. And also it's like go there, asking them questions and sharing about what they live every day. I think it's part of my duty, and it's curiosity, but also it's a way of showing my respect also for what they do. And I think there's so many actors in the jewelry world that I think it's normal to share all the actors. It's not just about, of course, you see the final piece, but there is so many stories behind this jewel. Of course, you have the craftsmanship, you have the design, that's the first thing you see. But you have stories of so many people behind a piece of jewelry. Sure.
And you also go under the sea as well, not just under the land.
Not for the gems, but yeah.
You were quite involved with Coral Gardeners, which is another charitable organisation to save coral reefs.
Yeah, so I'm very involved into nature preservation, and they do an incredible work about protecting coral. So it's in French Polynesia, it's in Moorea Island. And so I went, I think it was 3 years ago, spending like a month with them for them to explain me how it works. So I love to dive, so I came diving with them, and what they do is absolutely amazing. And I wanted to help them, so to visit them, to understand how it works, but also to help them in a financial way by creating pieces inspired by the sea, and all the benefits will go to them to help them in their organization.
You made the most lovely jellyfish.
Oh, thank you.
I loved that jellyfish. It was a sort of, the jellyfish bell was in matte rock crystal, and it had titanium and diamond, long tentacles.
Yeah.
It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, you get a little sense of the rock crystal and diamond. I love that combination the Lily of the Valley, which is in the exhibition. But it's sort of magical. And so you gave that to them to auction?
So no, I sold it to a client, and then but the benefits came directly to them.
Okay.
And that was a great thing. And I continue to help them in a financial way. So they're really an amazing team, and they do an artwork.
Because they're sort of planting coral.
So exactly, they take few pieces of coral, they cut the corals to make them grow again. It's like a culture of coral, and then they put it back to the sea. There's a special way of doing it to make them grow again, and they call that super coral because, of course, the temperature of the sea is getting higher. So we call that super coral because they are stronger than the classical corals. So we try to just make the coral regrow.
Do you have a favourite gemstone?
Oh, I mean, I love all the gemstones. I would say maybe emeralds.
You like emeralds?
I love what's happening in the emeralds. Of course, there is the beauty of the colors, the intensity of the green, but also there is all what's happening in the gems. We call that in French, les jardins de l'émeraude, the garden of the emeralds. And I think that's so romantic and beautiful.
Very romantic.
And I think there is like something happening into the stones.
So
Truly.
What will be the next mine that you visit? Do you know yet or not?
I would love to go to Burma.
To Burma, to rubies.
To Vogokma Valley to visit to understand more about the rubies and the spinels. But now about politics, it's quite complicated to go. It's closed, actually. The Mogok Valley, you can't go there. So I will see. But also I wanted to go to India. I've never been to India. And it's a big country about gemstones, but not for the mines. I wanted to understand, I go to Jaipur to see how they take all the cutting process of gemstones. So,
and the enamel.
The enamel as well, definitely. There's such a tradition of craftsmanship there, which is, of course, interesting.
Are you always looking for different techniques?
I mean, I'm always aware and curious about new techniques that I will use for few pieces. Sometimes I always try to find really a reason to use these materials. There's always a reason. It's not just, I want to try. It's really because I'm looking for a special effect, a special patina, transparency, like the rock crystal. Really depending on the design I'm looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what to you, if somebody said to you, this is a great piece of jewellery, what are the elements that you have to have in a great piece of jewellery?
How would I define like a good piece of jewellery?
Yes.
I think we had this discussion just right before the talk. I was saying that I think a good piece of jewelry, you can love it, you can hate it, but the worst it's when it's not interesting. So I think when you're just getting curious about a piece, it's already a good thing. Because
so it's got to provoke an emotion, a reaction.
Provoke an emotion, a reaction, and just making people like, what is this? What's the materials? What's the shape? Just being curious about. Because when it's just obvious and when you're just saying, oh yeah, it's beautiful, and just you go there, I think it's not a good piece of jewelry. It can be beautiful gemstones, but it has to evoke something to you.
And have a strong point of view.
Strong point of view, and as you said, like share an emotion, a feeling through the shapes, through the colors, through everything. But it has to share something. And I actually, when a client buy a piece from me, it's because it's like a crush. You feel in love with the piece. And you feel the piece is made for you. So I always say to my clients, like when you're hesitating on a piece, that means it's not a piece for you because you know when the piece is for you. I mean, I really believe that jewelry is very strong. So actually, the less you do around a piece of jewelry is the best. As I said, like a beautiful black outfit and a big pair of earrings or a brooch, something, it's perfect because it lets space for the jewel to express itself. So when it's about celebrities, most of the time it's more still focused about the outfit than the jewelry is just something you add.
Yeah.
Which I think it's a bit a shame.
And also it's not defining their style.
Yeah.
Maybe
also,
jewelry should define your style rather than just sort of change it every week. And
exactly.
Yes.
But you see, like even like big events like the Met Gala or things like that, you see incredible dresses and very creative dresses. But most of the time, the piece of jewelry you see are like diamonds, tennis bracelet, diamonds, earrings, which is nice. I love classic jewelry as well. But
he says quickly.
No, but classic can be very chic. I'm not judging, but it's just most of the time jewelry has to be quiet compared to fashion. And I think both of them are very strong, and the best would be like to really connect them. I think an outfit which work with the piece of jewelry. But again, that's why I'm saying like you can wear high jewelry like every day.
And how should they buy it? Because you've got your artistic background, you show your jewelry in an art space, in a gallery. Should people be buying like a piece of art, or should they be buying something to wear?
Both.
Both.
It's like a piece of art to wear. So it's I love to. My approach of jewelry is like an art, like painting, like sculpture, like music. It's a way, I define art not in a pretentious way, I'm just saying that it's a way of expression. And that's my vision of jewelry. So that doesn't mean it has to be like the Grail and be careful. It's an incredible piece of jewelry. Actually, it has to live with you because it's something so personal, so intimate. And again, the piece of jewelry is linked to the body. So it has to share the life with you.
I hadn't thought of it that way. Sharing your life, that's so nice. That's why it's so bad when people put their jewelry away and don't wear it. Because
actually, it's the worst. I prefer to see like, I mean, maybe not a broken piece, but like a piece that had the life, that like scratches and everything, than just a piece was perfect because it stayed in the safe during years and nobody wears it. I
did actually have the Duchess of Rutland on my podcast at one point. And I was asking her, she'd worn this tiara when she got married, and I was asking her about family jewelry and heritage and things like that. And she told me this terrible thing I thought terrible, that she hadn't seen the tiara since she got married.
Oh,
and I
wow.
said, but don't you go and stroke it or say hello or something every so often? I was thinking of this sort of neglected tiara in a box
That's
somewhere.
true.
It was very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you can wear a tiara to go to the supermarket, but it could be actually. I think in Asia it's becoming more. A lot of women wearing tiara to go to, like, big at work. Actually,
At work?
yeah. Actually, I've seen that.
Really?
Yeah, like
Precious.
exactly, and just to impose like I'm the boss. Awesome. Which I think we should all wear tiara.
Are you going to make one?
I would love to, actually. I actually, since I'm a child, I've always been fascinated by crown and tiara, so I would love to create one. I think there's something beautiful to have just some diamonds or on the head. Yeah.
And what's next for you, Emmanuel? Will it be more objects, more jewellery? Do you have the next collection in mind?
So the thing is with me, the way I'm working is like me, which means very spontaneous. So I never plan like 2 years in advance. Oh, I will do that. I will do that. So I'm working on new pieces, of course, but I want just to keep the most freedom as possible. So of course I will continue to do some objects, some piece of jewelry, but I'm not planning each thing. I just prefer to just follow my inspiration. It's very naive, my way of working, but I think I prefer to cherish this way of working than just planning and be stuck in something like this.
And you don't make very many pieces, do you?
No, because each piece, as we said, are very different experiments. So each of them takes a lot of time to be produced. And that's also when I do only one of a kind, because when I'm done with the piece, I prefer to think of something else and try something, try a new thing.